Hello, everyone. My name is Johanni Meiring, and we are presenting a survey to you today, me and Desiree Pillay. Thank you so much for inviting us for this event. We are really excited to share this with you. Parent Reality is our support group and the source of the survey. We co-founded Parent Reality, me, Johanni Meiring, and Nico Liebenberg in 2014. And since then, the group has focused on supporting parents from diagnosis to just navigate their journeys and feel supported emotionally and with information shared by parents themselves. So I'm going to give over to Desiree and let her tell you more about this survey that we have conducted.
Thank you, Johanni. Together with Parent Reality, we conducted this survey just to find out where were the pain points for parents when they were dealing with diagnosis, therapy and interventions, and education and support. Within our Parent Reality group, we have about 196 parents in a WhatsApp support group and close to 2,000 parents on Facebook. And we frequently found that parents, especially parents of children with autism, were asking questions around those areas of diagnosis, therapy and interventions, education and support. The survey aimed to just uncover what parents really needed. Sorry, my tabs are not being very helpful right now. There we go. It is Friday afternoon. That's why that's happening. So the first thing we did was just try to get an idea of the demographics of parents that we were dealing with. And in our questionnaire, we started out with asking parents where they were from. We then filtered just data that was specific to autism for the purposes of this survey. And interestingly, from our pool of parents, we came up with close to 90% of parents within the Gauteng region, and about just slightly over 10% of parents within Mpumalanga. Now, we think the reason for this could be, as Johanni explained, that Parent Reality was started in 2014, and both Johanni and Nico are in Pretoria, so their pool of parents might have been from there. From this 89%, there was a high number within the Pretoria area. We're not sure how Mpumalanga is reflected, and none of the other provinces have been reflected where parents have children with autism. So that could be that parents with children with autism did not complete the survey from other provinces, or they did complete the survey, but their children did not have autism. Then moving on to our questionnaire. We asked parents how many children within their family unit were diagnosed with a disability, and we got quite a high number, 78.95% with one child and 21% with more than one child, which is significant. And then understanding some of the comments that we received in our quantitative survey questions. At what age were the children diagnosed? And this was important to us just to find out what ages were children being diagnosed. There was a high percentage of children diagnosed under the age of 2 years, as you can see, 36%, and then a higher percentage of 31% for older than 8 years. So that was really interesting to us. There are 22%, there were 22% of our children diagnosed between the ages of 3 and 5, and then 9% between the ages of 6 to 7. So interesting just to see how diagnosis was happening in terms of the ages older than 8 and younger than 2 years old. And then we just want to get an idea of where those children were now in terms of their ages. A large number, 73% of those children were older than 8 at this point. So from diagnosis to this point, they were older than 8. And then a very small number, 5% were between the ages of 6 and 7 years old, and 21% were under the age of, or between the ages of 3 and 5 years old. We then just wanted to give this a different view. So we combined the children from birth to 5 years old into the pie chart that you will see here. And 60%, almost 60% of children under the age of 5 have been diagnosed within our pool of children. So they were diagnosed under the age of 5 within our pool, of families. And then we just wanted to get an idea of who was diagnosing parents. I had heard some strange diagnosis stories, and we just wanted to know within our group who were diagnosing parents, diagnosing children with autism. There was quite a high percentage of children being diagnosed by neurologists, and that then was in combination for other families with neurologists, psychiatrists, and teachers. We've had pediatricians, a very low number, and even with the others with psychiatrists, and then another team with occupational therapists and specialist pediatricians, and so on. What we decipher from this is that some of these were actual multidisciplinary diagnosis, or probably within the same time that the parent was having concerns, maybe a teacher was having concerns, and together with the medical professional, these diagnoses were made. We obviously need to extend this part of the survey further to find out exactly times and all of that. But yeah, it was just interesting to know that neurologists were still diagnosing more than maybe just somebody's friend or parent, which I've heard has diagnosed children. In question 6, was the information about your child's diagnosis made available to you? And this was meaning at the time of diagnosis. 63% of parents said yes. So this is interesting that 63% said yes, that the information was made available. And you will see through the rest of the survey how this plays out. And 36% said no, that information was not made available, which is significant. That information should be made available to all parents. And then we asked parents, if the information was provided, how was it provided? Because this was important for us dealing with parents who are struggling with trauma issues and just feeling overwhelmed by having a child with special needs, that they don't always remember, or they struggle to hold on to we can struggle to hold on to information at that point of diagnosis. And we had some interesting comments on this one. One parent said AFA, and that refers to Association for Autism, when it existed, invited me for coffee and gave me books. Another parent, which is the green, received verbally and printed information and links to website. Then we had an equal number of parents who received information who did not receive any information, and parents who did receive information verbally. So 31.58% received it verbally, and 31.58% did not receive any information. There was also a parent received links to websites, and then 21% of parents received print information. So this was very telling of what information was being provided and what parents were receiving at the point of diagnosis. And then question 8, we just wanted to know if parents were feeling comfortable to ask the professional any questions at that time, which is an important time to gain more information so that parents can make better decisions. A small percentage said they did not want to ask any questions. 26% said no, they did not feel comfortable. And thankfully, 63% said yes, they did feel comfortable. But later on, you'll see how this percentage reflects differently when we've asked a question related to this. And then we also asked parents if they were referred to other service providers. And 5% of parents said they did not remember if they were referred. 63% of parents said that yes, they were referred, and 31%, which we think is a high number, said they were not referred. So that's significant to know in terms of what information parents are receiving at diagnosis. And then we asked parents if they got a second opinion. 57% of parents said no. And if you look at question 11, since the diagnosis, have you returned to the first medical profession who diagnosed your child? 57% of parents also said no. So we have the same number of parents who did not seek a second opinion, and the same number of parents who who did not return to their diagnosing doctor. I don't know how that would have played out. That would obviously need further investigation. And then equally, 42% did seek a second opinion and 42% did return to their diagnosing doctor. Did you trust the medical profession overseeing your child's care? This was interesting. 26% of parents said no, and 73% said yes. So that's important because trust with our professionals is a big deal. And so that was significant for us. What did you feel about your child's future? 47% of parents said overwhelmed, and that's significant. At diagnosis, we know that often happens with parents, and this is why we really think information is, even though parents are overwhelmed, it might be really important for them to have information that will help them to not feel overwhelmed. 10% of parents felt empowered, and 42% said they were just unsure. So we moved on to another section on interventions and treatments, and we were asking parents about information that they may or may not have received about different interventions and treatments. And in this section, we specifically just want to know what their experiences were and who they were being referred to. So 47% of parents did not receive information to help them with their child's intervention or further treatment. 52% of parents did, which is great. And then we asked them who provided the information. So 31% of parents actually found the information on the internet, which is not surprising in the world that we live in. And 21% did receive information from their neurologist, which is great that they did get that information. But later on, Johanni will share with us what that means, because that changes for parents in terms of what type of information they were receiving with their neurologist. And then significantly, psychologists have provided information and occupational therapists. And then further down are teachers and another parent of a child with a disability. And then, did you know what questions to ask about interventions or treatments when you were first made aware of your child's diagnosis? And this is important because parents don't have the vocabulary, but they need to be made aware of what they need to take into account when thinking about how to support their children. And a significant number of parents said no, they did not know what questions to ask. And then also in another question, we asked parents if they were made aware of costs involved, and parents also were not made aware of the costs involved in helping their children finding the right interventions and treatment. And then we wanted to know, did parents want to know everything about what interventions and treatments were available at the time of diagnosis? And every parent said yes. So even though they were overwhelmed, this was still significant and important for them. So we also asked parents if they were satisfied with the first intervention that their child and their family experienced, and 42% of parents said yes, but a higher number, 57% of parents said no, they were not happy with that, the first intervention. And then we asked them if they understood the goal of the intervention, and 68% of parents said yes. So they did understand it, but they were not satisfied with it. And then we also asked parents, did it take longer than they expected for the intervention to make a significant difference for their child? And 94% of parents said yes. So the expectations of that intervention and the understanding of it, somewhere there was a misalignment in terms of that. And that's really important and significant for us. And then we asked parents, what did they feel about their child's future during the intervention? And still 73% of parents said they were unsure. There were parents that felt empowered, but a further 15% felt overwhelmed. And then we also wanted to know how they felt about their child's future in terms of going through whatever intervention they had chosen to go through. Many parents said they were unsure, and again, parents said they were overwhelmed. So that was the overriding response, 73% unsure. And we asked parents if they found the right intervention strategy, and 57% said yes, they felt they had now, at this point of the survey, were in the right intervention strategy. And the 42% of parents said they were not they were not in the right, they had not found the right intervention. And then moving on to educational and support services, I'm going to try and be really quick because I'm taking into Johanni's time here. We asked parents if they're made aware of what schools were available for their child in terms of education needs, and 73% of children were not aware of what services were available for educating their children. We also wanted to know if they knew, if anybody made them aware at the point of diagnosis of schools that were within the proximity of where the family lived, and 78% of parents responded no. Again, in terms of understanding the differences in schooling, that there were private schooling and government schooling options, were parents told these differences? A high number of parents said no, 84% said they did not know. They just thought their child needs to go to a special needs school, but did not know the differences. And then we also asked parents what their experience was in finding a school that was that they were confident in, and parents overwhelmingly found this difficult and frustrating, but we did have 15% that felt they found the perfect school at the time of this survey. We also wanted to know how parents were feeling about their child's future in terms of schooling. And again, 57% and 36% were unsure and overwhelmed, and just a small number were feeling empowered. We asked parents if they were told about national organizations where they could get more information, and a resounding 78% said no. Again, remember, this is then within a demographic of our parent support group, and the two provinces that represented there were Gauteng and Mpumalanga. So a resounding 78% said no. And we also asked them if they knew, did they contact a national organization? And 63% said no, 36% said yes. We wanted to know, after 36% who contacted the national organization, did they receive the help they wanted or expected? And 90% said no. So this could be for various reasons and would obviously need further investigation. We also wanted to know, when they contacted a national organization, did they feel they had access to further information that they might need in their parenting of their child with autism? And 75% of parents said no, they did not receive further access to information. And we also asked, were they aware of any parent support organizations in South Africa? Again, 78% said no. So more parents had less information that could have helped them easily at diagnosis, then they should have more information at those points. We asked, parents did find if they found a support group, and 57% said yes, which was great, but 42% had not found support. We also wanted to know if parents in the support group, were they finding it helpful? So while 66% of parents found it helpful, 33% were not finding it helpful at this point. We also, then the last one was, has it been easier to find medical help intervention than educational options as children have grown older? For 57% of parents, it has been easier, but still 42% of parents found that it was still difficult as their children grew older. So I'm going to hand over to Johanni now for the next section in terms of the findings from this.
Thank you, Desiree. All of those statistics is actually also a bit overwhelming, right? So we need to think about each one of them. But taking from that, we just wanted to summarize a bit for you and just show that obviously in what we've seen here, that a desperate need exists to get functional educational, functional and practical information. It's not that they're not getting information, but it might not really be enough informational support for parents to really support their child's development and treatment from diagnosis. It also shows that the measure of information distributed seems to be inadequate to really help the family to move forward, and that the expected source of information, that is the specialist, fails at times to give them what they need and what they expect at a time of receiving that news, that they need to treat their child with a diagnosis. Today you'll have to sort my slide there, the next one, please. So the findings that we got was that from our comments that the parents gave, that they really needed more of information, support, and access. If we look at those three main parts, Desiree, then we just summarize them for you for a bit. So looking at information, the response regarding information, doctors and therapists, they just felt that they need to be more informed on the practical information, on those things that they need. One of the comments given was from a parent. My son was on medication for almost 2 years, and during that time, there was no time to think about other interventions because they were not giving, that we were not even getting to meet basic needs like sleeping. We felt like we were all alone in this with no help emotionally, physically, or financially. All I could think of was how to get my child and me to a place where none of this suffering exists. And this is really not a good place to be. They need more available resources. One parent said having literature, a counselor, a social worker available for parents with newly diagnosed children is needed. Nothing is made available. A better explanation of the diagnosis by the specialist, and more information on different therapeutic approaches. More info on intervention, schools, and support groups, like we saw in those statistics, finding service providers in our areas, and honesty if it comes to outcomes and practical assistance. People really want to understand the interventions. Info on how to educate and inform those people, the teachers, the school, the family that needs to interact with the child. Educational conferences, maybe focusing on more specific angles and perspectives on conferences, and more information on different options for treatment. They also want information on the way forward, exactly what to do next, and the information about planning for the future. And then we move on to support, and they felt that they needed support in guidance to accessing information, family and the family unit, coping skills, finding a support group, and then skills to parent a special needs child, accessing resources such as services, finances, medical aids and options, processing, also support in processing the diagnosis. Then support regarding schooling and interventions, and understanding autism better. The parents' responses regarding needing access, they really wanted access to information on interventions, financial support, and acceptable public hospital facilities. Then the parents wanted the stakeholders at the symposium to know that they often feel lost in the treatment process. They need more free services, and they needed a guide how to move forward in the treatment of their children. They need specialized education for their children. One of the parents commented, "I have been turned away twice by the Department of Education in trying to get him into an LSEN school." They need educational accommodations for autistic non-speakers and need more LSEN government schools. They also need whistleblowing on autism curing. One parent commented, "I don't know much as I'm fairly new, but I have done stem cell therapy, and there are quite a few people out there promising that they can cure autism, which I found unfair to tell vulnerable parents." We need caregiver trainings and resources on autistic teenage issues. Parents need guidance from the first diagnosis. It took us 3 years to get to the information we needed. They need diagnosis appointment to be accompanied by an in-depth discussion about diagnosis, they experience severe family challenges. Families are destroyed by ignorance and need long-term residential facilities for autistic adults. So on looking at all of that, which is repetitive in some way, I'm sure you've seen, we just thought that, if we need to start doing something, let's just start at the beginning, and that would be a diagnosis, to really try and be more focused on the kind of information that we give through. So we would recommend to intentionally raise awareness among specialists and therapists that providing specific service provider referrals is not sufficient in the properly educate and support parents with diagnosis, because that is what we see, that the information given is more focused on specific service providers more than a whole scope of information. We propose the following specific suggestions. First, that specialists should schedule time within the diagnostic appointment to give a thorough explanation of the specific diagnosis, or to collate proper explanatory informational resources to give to the parent in the consultation room. Second, to refer parents to functional and adequate informational support. Autism SA has done a lot of work, and there's lots of information available on their website. 3, to work together with a counselor, a social worker in the practice to manage emotional and informational guidance for parents. We really feel that these recommendations can make a big difference. And then in conclusion, we just want to say thank you that we can present this and that we can share what we are experiencing on a daily basis in the support group with you. And that we really hope that this survey will result in leading to other surveys to gather information. We would like to encourage our community of support between parents, autistic individuals, and service providers. And we also hope that steps will be taken to streamline the journey for parents from diagnosis to interventions, education, and support. We can't do this alone. We can only do it together. And we want to talk more. We want to help influence more and make changes in our community to help families thrive. Desiree, is there anything else you would like to close off with?
I think I just wanted to say that we want to see whole families, and that parents and their autistic children living full, successful lives.
Yes. Thank you so much, and we hope to speak a lot again. Goodbye.